Welcome back to the DGD Podcast. Guys, it's here. We've had a lot of talk about. Georgia held their second and final scrimmage of the fall. So we're going to talk about that. We've got Hytoff's over-unders, another season. We're going to do our first installation of that. We're going to be talking a lot of college football, not just Georgia, but across the country, shall I say, and then another year of DGD Pickem. But first things first, this show is brought to you by our friends over at Alumni Hall. Guys, y'all know the drill. Kobe, sir, it's been a long time. Welcome back.
Thanks, sir. Thank you. It's good to be back. Happy that football season is upon us again.
Absolutely, man. And if you're not watching and you're listening on podcast, my man has lost some absurd amount of weight. So congratulations on the weight loss. Looks like, I guess we said this before the show. I'm just saying, you look like Kirby Smart ran you to death. It feels like 2016, maybe.
I feel like it. I'm under playing weight right this second, so I'm way down. But feeling good. Been getting the miles in before work, after work, pushing the plate away a little bit. Had some good success.
Dan, welcome in, sir. Welcome in.
Howdy doody, Bucket Rudy. And yeah, if he lost the weight, I found it.
Oh, look no further, fella. You found it. That's how I feel. Welcome into the brigade, coming in hot and heavy, guys. We got a loaded show, so let's get started. Past Saturday, Georgia held second final scrimmage. Most important one, Kobe, you were actually there with, if I'm not mistaken, with an animal that rhymes with Juan Daniels. That's called goat. Just to leave that be known. Let us know, man. How was that, by the way?
Let's just go with first and foremost. It was hot. It was warm out there on Saturday. So that's one thing that I think is underappreciated, underrealized when you look at. I know for me personally, like I follow a lot of athletes on TikTok. Love this time of year. You get to see like Division II, Division III, all different levels of Division I athletes talking about camp, talking about their camp schedule, talking about what their day-to-day looks like in camp. And I sit there on my phone and I just shake my head and I'm like, man, y'all got it easy watching their camp schedule. I'm like, I could have done 6 years of that fall camp. I'm looking, they're practicing at 7 o'clock in the morning. They're getting 3 hours off in the afternoon. They're all taking a nap. Make no mistake. That man Kirby makes camp as hard as humanly possible, as legally possible. There may be walking some gray lines at times. It's hot. It's 95 plus, and he's running them boys to death. It's good on good. It's inside run. It's Bloody Tuesday on a Saturday. He was telling he spoke to the alumni for like 10 minutes before going out there. He broke down scrimmage one. He was like, it was hot. I thought our guys didn't respond well. I've really challenged them this week to respond better to the adversity. He's like, thought we didn't play great defense, thought we didn't control the line of scrimmage great, looked sloppy at times. He said, I will tell you, we're out here today for scrimmage 2. He said, this is practice 18 in 20 days. He's like, we're going to wrap up. We're going to wrap up spring or fall camp. But these guys are tired. These coaches are tired. These coaches' families are tired. We're going to get it out of here. I think we've got 3 days off. I think we got Saturday, Sunday, or the rest of the day Saturday, all day Sunday, all day Monday. The guys were off. And it looked good. It looked like those fellas were playing like they knew they didn't have to show up tomorrow. And that's what I like to see.
Yeah, well, let's just do this, man. Some takeaways, right? I think one of the biggest takeaways was Jared Wilson. Sounded like he was back in. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, Jared looked good. I think it's amazing how blessed we've been at center for so many years here. Even I think back to like Ben Jones when he played center, David Andrews, Lamont Gilliard, who was a 4-star defensive tackle that played center here and ends up playing in the league. We have just been really lucky, not only that we've recruited good centers, but we've also developed good centers. And I would say Jared Wilson's on up there with one of the best this preseason. I get it, hadn't seen a lot of times, but he is going to end up as one of the better centers we've had under Coach Smart's tenure. I was impressed with snaps. I thought his communication looked good. And then I was actually really impressed, and this is just versatility for the NFL, but I thought Tate looked really good. I thought Tate snapped the ball well. He controlled the line of scrimmage. He was running some 2 center. I think that's a very legitimate possibility to see some rotation at center if Jared's not 100% or has something banged up. I think that's just a great idea on Stacey Searles, on Kirby Smart, to say, hey, if things are rough, at least we have somebody with all-American potential that can play backup.
Dan, I'm going to ask you, what was your key takeaway from the scrimmage?
There were no major injuries. That's at this time of year. I say it over and over again, and I know it's boring to listen to, but my biggest takeaway is that whenever they come out, of course I want to hear that they were clean. Of course I want to hear that they played well. Of course I want to hear the energy was great. But at the end of the day, I want to hear that there were no injuries, because the one thing that can really stop this team from going where it wants to go is injury. And it was so great to hear that Jared Wilson's back at center, and that lets Tate move back over to where he's supposed to be. But, even like you said, Kobe, the fact that he was controlling the game as much as he was while playing center. And if I'm not mistaken, he's never played center before, right? It's just something that they asked him to do.
Yeah, correct. I think they're just asking him to do it during fall camp just to get some versatility.
And that's incredible, because it's not an easy thing to do. So that just speaks to his overall talent and how he's able to adapt. And I think that you made you kind of hinted at it, that it's going to increase his value at the next level. The fact that he can do it and possibly do it at a high level. But listen, that offensive line is going to be really, really good, and it's important that it's good because we got to keep Carson Beck standing upright. We have weapons all over the field. Everything that came out publicly, obviously I wasn't there, so everything that I have is for public consumption. And of course, they want to control the narrative for the most part. But everything was really positive, and then coming after a really negative scrimmage, that's really good to hear that we're trending in the right direction. And again, no injuries, no significant injuries.
It sounds like we're getting healthier too. I think that's another big thing too. When you take into context, right, Jared Wilson specifically, right, which I think kind of opened the door for Tate to really take those center reps. Because I remember talking through most of fall camp, we were talking about Tate doing that and the impact on it and whatnot. So I think it's going to be interesting to hear how that goes. But I think what Kobe was saying too is if he does take some snaps at center, that also opens up more playing time for guys like Michael Morris. I think that's something you're going to have to do regardless, but that's just an easier way. Kind of opens up the fact that you might not necessarily have to feel rushed to put him back in there. And I think that's another big thing too. I know you talked about staying injury free for the most part. I do think another thing though too is the running back room, right? You've got a situation where You've got a situation where you got ETN healthy, but Roderick Robinson's kind of out right now. But Branson Robinson kind of balancing that out in regards to coming back. I genuinely think that's huge. That's extremely huge.
I thought it was telling in Kirby's press conference on Monday, where he was kind of giving Branson Robinson a lot of credit for even being there, even being available. Talking about how he went through spring, but he didn't really get to do anything. He did participate, but he wasn't, obviously non-contact. And then how hard he's worked to get back and how good he looks this early. So, Kirby doesn't go out of his way to throw roses to a lot of different people. So the fact that he decided to bring that up and be so positive about it, to me, is a big deal.
Yeah, I can basically agree with you 100%. I think another thing too is you see it sounded like like Kobe said, right? You're sitting there looking at a situation where the energy was high and everything. Part of me believes that, right, well, they're done with camp. They know it. But at the same time, it's good as you move move forward into prepping for Clemson, right? if I'm not mistaken, having to basically hold guys back from being so physical. That, well, it sounds crazy. That's actually a good thing. I'd much rather. I think I'd much rather have to pull you back than to tell you to keep moving. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. So I thought that was something well too. I'm curious what your thoughts are with Colby Young. Right? I think we look at the receiver room. Do we think after fall camp and everything, do we feel as if Colby Young will be the X sooner, or do we think that there's still some more time having? Well, hey, welcome back. Do we expect more time?
The dog's having a moment, so I'm trying to deal with her as we're doing all this.
There we go. Now I was talking about Colby Young, Kobe when he pops back in. Either way, there you go.
I'm here. So I'm just not going to have y'all watch me chase her around. So I'm here. I'll talk.
I mean, it would be entertainment for those watching on this, but at the same time, Dan, I'm going to ask you this. What are your thoughts on Colby Young and maybe even the receiver room? We'll branch out.
After what I saw in the spring and then what I've heard about him and, size, weight, speed, all that stuff, I got really, really excited about Colby Young. And now I'm really concerned. And they say that he's probably going to be back, probably could play if the game was this weekend. But soft tissue issues, say that fast, really concern me because those things don't tend to go away. They don't tend to get better, right? They kind of tend to linger and
very much so.
Potentially get worse. I was on record early on. I thought that guy was going to be a major factor for us. I thought that he was going to be one of the better players that we had this year, which I got a little bit of flack for because he didn't really produce at Miami at the level that he was expected to produce at. However, you're putting him in a ready-made offense that's got weapons all over the place. You can't focus on him. You have a quarterback that is far superior to anything he's ever played with that's going to be able to get him the ball in a place where he can work with it. I think the sky is the limit for him. If he's able to stay healthy, if he's able to play, if he's able to be full speed, I anticipate really, really, really big things. I mean, obviously, I think we all think Domin's probably going to be the lead dog in the wide receivers, but I think he can be a major, major influence.
No, I think you need him to be, right? I mean, because while I want to see Dylan Bell obviously get as many targets as possible, at the same time, I do like to see, someone step up and take over that true X position. That is a difference making position, especially within the receiving core. Kind of going along, I guess, and we'll stand on the offensive side of the ball. Wide receivers sounded like there wasn't really many drops. Right, that's huge, especially knowing some receivers that have kind of had those issues plaguing them slightly last year. Hearing that, I think is a good sign for Georgia fans, and I think that's something that I think we'll gladly take. Just keep that moving through the season. Tight end position. Obviously, we don't feel in a situation where you're kind of having to worry at all. I think Oscar Delp has asserted himself as the guy. And with that being said, I think the tight end position is about to get a lot more, how can I say it, explosive this year too. Because I think with Oscar Delp, he is kind of a more athletic style tight end. So you're going to see him become more of a receiving tight end. So we'll see how that goes. And Dan, also, I want to ask you about the offensive line. I know we talked about Jared Wilson first. Were there any other things along the offensive line that I guess anything that you thought should stand out or anything like that?
No, I mean, I heard what came out. I heard that it was good. It was physical. I don't have a whole lot to add with the offensive line because it's for me, Robert. And I mean, obviously, you can infer as much as you want out of public comments, but when you're not there and you're not watching, you don't have your eyes on it, it's really hard to make assertions or it's just difficult to have a very valid opinion when you're not able to watch it. But offensive line, defensive line is one of those things where you really have to see it to know exactly what's going on. You can hear like, oh, Tate looked good at center or, Jared looked good at center, but like it's hard I know this is like not good for a podcast form or a show or whatever, but it's very hard for me to give you definitive answers when I didn't see it. You know what I mean?
Oh
Like,
yeah,
but
no, I mean, I think
I'm
that's the realist. I think that's the realistic approach, though, from people that are not being able to, to see it every day, right? Like we were fortunate to listen to Kobe talk for a little bit, and honestly, I think that insight's a lot more than we can honestly give, just because of the fact that we don't have the availability to be there.
right.
We don't have
Exactly.
that access. But at the same time, the good thing is next Saturday, we'll get to see everything that, you'll get to see all of it. And for that, we are thankful.
Well, and by all accounts, we're going to get to see the 5 that they want. Like
Yeah.
the 5 that they earmarked as the best 5, we're going to get to see them have an opportunity to play with those 5 up front. And I have a feeling that this line could be as good as anyone that we've had before. The stars may not be there, the measurables. I was reading something the other day where they were just talking about Ernest Green. Obviously doesn't have the measurables of some of the other tackles that played before him, but might actually be the best. Yeah, fundamentally sound. Sound.
That's and I think to your point, that's exactly what needs to be brought up, right? He's not an Amarius Mims style, right? Like super imposing in that regard. He's not an Andrew Thomas, but at the same time, when you focus on the fundamentals and the technique, and you are a perfectionist in that regard, sometimes technique can it can outdo the God-gifted measurables. And I think that's something that it's not all the time, but I do think it's something that, in this instance, I think Georgia's, I'd say, fortunate to have.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But I think, like you said, we've talked about the injuries and people coming back. But I think the depth on the offensive line, being able to go 7-8 deep, I think is huge. I think that's huge. And especially when you've got Michael Morris sitting the bench as a 6th man.
Yeah.
Like that's an NFL player. He's getting NFL grades right now.
Absolutely.
And he hasn't started, and he's not even playing. He's not even a starter. It's just crazy depth. Just crazy depth.
I'll tell you the one thing that I am extremely like. I don't know about you, but offensively, the one thing that I cannot wait to see day one against Clemson is what ETN looks like in this offense. Because,
man,
I mean, I'm not trying to get carried away. I know he was a quality player at Florida, but if you look at what's around him here at Georgia, much better offensive line, much better weapons to take pressure off of them. They're not going to be able to stack the box and sell out on stopping the run. He's good out of the backfield, possibly great out of the backfield. I mean, I don't want to go that far yet.
Well, really, Dan, the only thing we as Georgia fans have got to see of him in red and black outside of the folks that are there at the scrimmages, G-Day. And what we saw at G-Day kind of left us a lot to be, looking forward to, right? I was extremely happy with what we had, right? Between the tackle burst, things like that. I think that's, and his pass blocking, right? Mm-hmm. I heard a lot of Gators fans when he came from Florida, good luck getting him to pass block. He can't pass block, blah, 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 blah. Thought he did just fine to me. Kind of tells me what I needed to know. But I digress on that situation. But no, I think Branson Robinson and his recovery is going to be to me, I think the best possible storyline coming from this fall camp into the season, because I feel like there could be a situation where you need him right now.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying you will, because I mean, listen, MVP probably at least offensively, Nate Frazier. Sounds like Nate Frazier had himself a damn good fall and a summer since he got here. It's been really, really good. Can't complain about that. But at the same time, that is a true freshman going up against a very good front at Clemson. So I think having Branson fully healthy or as close to healthy as possible is going to make for an excellent storyline and something Georgia fans are going to be super excited about.
So do you feel like Frazier is sitting in the 3 spot right now?
Well, I think solely just due to the fact that we've got Roderick with the turf toe thing, I think he kind of propels himself up. When Roderick comes back, I think you keep him at the 4, and then that's completely fine. You're still going to get rotation, but I kind of think, you could see that. Now the question is how how do they view Branson come Clemson the game?
Hey, is Cash Jones still on the roster?
He absolutely is. That's another name.
He's going to get carries. They like him. I mean, we had running backs last year, and he still got carries. And they say he's the fastest guy on the team.
I don't know about that. Sorry, but Arian Smith is that guy on the speed. Just probably Dwight Phillips after that, maybe slightly. But sorry, Arian Smith's that guy. Yeah, for me, at least.
I don't know who
for
Dwight
me, at
Phillips
least.
Is.
Dwight Phillips is a freshman. You know that is. He's a running back.
Don't.
Oh, that's right. You don't keep up recruiting like that. Yeah, Dwight Phillips is a freshman running back. One of the three. Him, Chauncey, and Nate.
Okay.
And Harry Leggy said, when Georgia has a rushing game, we are unstoppable. I mean,
facts.
We do a lot of running, but at the same time, these past couple of years, we've actually been more of a pass first team. If you're looking at mix, so if you have a capable running game, I think this is probably the deepest running back room we've had since probably Swift. So that's just my thoughts on that. Any final thoughts on the offense as we get ready to transition over to the defensive side of the ball?
No, I'm ready to see it on the field because I love some good offense. I'm an offensive guy, so I'm excited. It sounds like this from top to bottom. This is probably as complete a roster as we've had. We may not have star power at one position over the other, but by all indications, it sounds like our roster is as good as it's ever been, as deep as it's ever been.
It feels that way. It definitely feels that way. Let's just transition to the defensive side of the ball real fast. First things first, defensive line. Sounds like Warren Brinson was able to get back.
Huge.
Absolutely. I think that is no question that is a massive return, if you will. Now you just need to keep them healthy, right? Get them healthy and things like that. I think that's going to be huge, especially against that Clemson front offensive line. I want that experience to be disruptive. Just going to say. Mm-hmm. But other than that, though, man, I know the Jordan Hall situation. All right, we're waiting on that. But, that's giving guys like Jamal and Christian Miller, giving those guys a lot of opportunity, a lot of reps. And I think you're going to see those guys get looked on a lot early on. What are your thoughts on defensive line, interior wise?
I think if you're thinking about our interior defensive line, I think we have talent. I think a lot of the talent is unproven. I think it's one of those things where, Kirby had mentioned he was a little concerned about depth. I think that's one of the areas where depth might be a concern, not because we don't have talent, but we just don't have proven talent. And I think a lot is going to be expected out of the young guys to produce. I think there's other positions on the team where you're gonna have veteran leadership, and you're probably going to be a veteran group at different positions. But I really feel like, and this is just my personal opinion, that on that defensive front, especially on the interior, you're going to need a young player to step up and contribute this year. I don't think that's necessarily true in any other position group where you're going to have to have it. You're going to have it out of that defensive front.
Absolutely. I mean, it starts early on too. I think you need that interior to be disruptive, and the guys like Jamal Jarrett could easily force themselves into being a disruptor. When you look, we're not getting too far ahead because we have a preview match for preview show just for this. But I think Jamal Jarrett could stand to have a really big impact week one. And this is no bias. I just think the fact that he's going to be looked on as that true mint run stopper, space eater, if you will. And if you can stop Phil Maffa from Clemson, I genuinely think you have a shot to just neutralize the entire offense for them. They do like to run Phil Maffa a lot. But like I said, we're not going to get too far in the weeds on that. I do think that is something we need to save for the Clemson preview. However, that interior defensive line is going to get looked on early, and I think they got to come in ready to go. And I think you've got the guys to do so. And Dogs Rolling Loud says Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins. That is another name. Keep him healthy. He will be disruptive. I just want to see the consistency, and things are looking really good at that point if so.
And Stackhouse is still here, right?
Absolutely.
It feels like Stackhouse has been at Georgia for like 38 years. Does it not? It feels like he's been here forever.
It's been 84 years.
Yeah, it really has.
Sorry.
That's what, like, I kept hearing that come up, and I was like, "Are you sure you're not making a mistake and saying somebody's name wrong?" Because
Logue was the only one that left. Logue was the only one that left out of those three last year.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, that's obviously interior wise, that Stack and Brinson are going to be looked on as the senior guys, right? The leaders of that interior. But there's so many bodies there that you need them to have good games and get that production. So.
We need Brinson to be available. We need Brinson to be healthy. We need Brinson to stay healthy because he's a major factor.
Well, the healthier those guys get, the more they can rotate, the fresher they become, the less we see the same, what we saw last year, right? Guys were not able to stay healthy. Guys were not ready. It pushed situations on those guys. They were gassed and they got pushed around.
Oh, there were games that we got gashed up front, 100%. And we hadn't seen that in a while. Like, that hurt.
Yeah.
You get so used to having such a dominant defensive front that, like, when you start getting pushed around a little bit, like, kind of hurts your feelings.
Yeah. Let's slide out on the edges. I'll do this one. Damon Wilson, to me, making a name for himself, and I expect a huge year out of him.
I don't disagree with you. I mean, I think everybody's going to focus on Michael and what he's able to do coming off the edge. And then, there's been a lot of talk that he's playing linebacker now, right? He's moving off. His hand's not going to be on the ground. Is that right, Michael?
I think, Michael, yeah. So I think you're going to see him play defensive end, but I do think they're going to put him in certain packages where you do see him hands up. So I think you'll kind of move him out to the outside linebacker situation. I don't necessarily say that's going to be a half and half type thing, 50-50, but definitely something that I think we'll see what happens. But before we continue with Damon, the chat's talking about Joseph Jonah-Janye. Had a good fall. Good fall. Question is, how much run do you think you get him? You want to get him reps, right? I think he'll get reps. I think you take games where we are completely dominating, right? And that's when you get him a significant amount of reps. I think that's a lot of the freshmen too. I think that's how you'll see Quintavious Johnson. Now that we'll get back to the edge, if you will, Quintavious will probably get some run there. And obviously we talked about Damon Wilson. Do not sleep on Gabe Harris either. You cannot do it. You cannot do it.
You can, but that's on you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think when you look at the edge position, I also think you'll see Jalen Walker get an expanded role. And obviously you'll still have Chaz Chambliss. Guys, edge position compared to a couple years ago, completely night and day different. You can't ask for more depth right now when probably a couple years back you were fiending for depth at the edge position. It was not feeling good this time a couple years ago, at least in my opinion. Dan, you got any names in the edge positions, defensive ends that we should maybe hash back up?
They have TID listed as a defensive end on their official roster depth chart. Is that right?
I mean, it does make sense. Probably a 5-tech. I mean, I was thinking more edge, outside linebacker, but I mean,
yeah, it says their depth chart of defensive end is Michael Williams, TID, Gabe Harris, and then Jonah.
I guess that ties out. I mean, you're probably looking at 5-techs, but because Michael could slide out to a 7. Play true edge / outside linebacker.
Oh, and who we forgot to mention on the interior defensive line is Xavier McLeod.
Yeah, I think he's actually nursing something. I might be wrong.
I heard Kirby say he's ready to go.
Oh, well then even better. So, yeah. Even better.
All right, so you want to go to linebackers?
We can do that. Is there any this is hard to do just because of how good this linebacker room is. Just gonna leave this bit on. CJ Allen had a good camp. Raylan Wilson, good camp. Smile Mondon coming back healthy. I think that's huge. Probably the biggest talking point there. And if you get him healthy, do you do Jalen Walker there too? Probably so, right? I think Jalen Walker's a guy that you just find a way to get him on the field. Whether it be linebacker, whether it be edge rusher, pass situations, you find a way to get him on the field. But not even just that. You've still got a situation where Justin Williams, Chris Cole, the freshman, it's just so deep at that linebacker room. It is. I can't wait to see us play like a Tennessee Tech where we should just absolutely annihilate them and just let the second string defense run. Put Justin, Chris Cole, Chris Jones, let those guys get out there and just go. Terrell Foster, don't forget that name. The depth at linebacker as a whole, it's just stupid. That's the only thing I can think of. It's literally stupid. And then Troy Bowles. Troy Bowles was probably going to get some run too. So good luck getting all those guys run.
Jeff, that's a great point about Bowles, because that's one of those names that I wanted to know more about last year. One of the things that a coach's kid typically is ready to roll pretty much immediately. So I was a little bit surprised he didn't get any run. I can't wait to see what that kid can do. So, to me, I thought he was going to be a high-level player. And, for him to kind of be MIA up to this point, I mean, he's only a sophomore, so it's not like he's like totally missed out or anything like that. But I expected to see him contributing. But then, again, you have to point to just how freaking deep this roster is, man. It's so hard to get on the field. And, I mean, Justin Williams might be one of the best linebackers we've had in quite a while. And he's fighting just to get playing time. So, I mean, CJ Allen's only a freaking sophomore, bro, and he's behind him. So that's going to be tough sledding.
Yeah, I think you feeling really damn confident if you're a Georgia Bulldog fan in regard to that linebacker room. Just going to leave that being known there. Let's talk about secondary, man. Listen, when it comes to the cornerback position, right, corner specific, hearing Dalen Everett and how well he has performed this offseason makes me feel a lot more confident where we are as a secondary. Everybody wants to look at last year and the fact that he got tested and got bullied and picked on. But then if you take into context who was around him, and he was young, he was his first time, getting his feet wet. Are you surprised that he got picked on?
No. I mean, what are you going to go after Kamari Lassiter? Okay.
Good luck with Tyke Smith. Good luck with Javon Bullard.
Right.
Good luck with Malachi Starks.
Right.
So, I mean, by default, you had what you got to find somebody to try to.
You have to throw the ball, and somebody's going to get picked on, and it just ended up being him. But I mean, to your point, I mean, he drew the short straw, but it's going to make him better.
Actually, Jeff in the chat, we did not forget about Smile. Promise you, we didn't. We talked about it briefly.
Yeah, he's just kind of a known quantity.
I mean, at the same time, him coming back healthy was huge. I'm just going to let that be known. But no, I think kind of getting back to the corner, I think all eyes were on the second cornerback spot, right? Daniel Harris, Julian Humphrey. If I'm not mistaken, Julian got the ones start Saturday. But I don't necessarily know. Now, the question is, I don't know if it's indicative of who's going to get the start come week one at Clemson. However, I think this is just a testament to how good of a position battle this is, and it's a good position battle. It's not the one where you're sweating, you got two players, kind of two bad players. Who's going to get it? And you're nervous.
You're talking about like if you have two, you don't have one type deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's almost you can play rotation and try to balance it out, but at the same time, we'll see what it looks like. Maybe do some kind of predictions if Kirby probably won't produce a depth chart until you walk it out the locker room.
Yeah, right.
Just letting that be known for those that might not be familiar. But, listen, I think there's still a lot to infer from it. I think they're going to look at the game plan for Clemson right now. They're probably in the midst of doing that. So they'll figure out who's best suited to go against that game plan at Clemson for sure.
I think Julian Humphreys is going to impress a lot of people this year. I'm
I think
excited.
so. I mean, his coverage was never an issue. I think a lot of it was his physicality. And I think what you've seen this offseason, especially at G-Day, I think a lot of it is, coming up striking. But getting your head around, I think just small things that we saw in G-Day, transferred over through to the summer, into the fall. Just, I think you're going to have a good situation there.
And Ellis is going to get a lot of playing time too. And here's my bold prediction: when you let a freshman wear number 1, dude is a badass.
Yeah,
you don't give a freshman number 1 unless he's an absolute bona fide badass.
I mean, same thing with Nate Frazier wearing 3 as a freshman. Kind of ring a bell on it. Like, you could go on about that. Let's do this. Let's kind of go back to the safeties. I think Dan Jackson's your starter aside Malachi Starks. Surprise, surprise. More so Malachi, right? Just obviously Malachi probably will never get off the field. I mean, if he does, I don't think it'll be for long. But at that other safety position, I think KJ Bolden will be the guy come in time. I feel like it won't be this year.
And listen, I covered Daniel. It was Daniel Jackson back in the day, but I covered him, from his sophomore all the way. I mean, because maybe he did play as a freshman. But anyway, I used to do all the North Hall games on the radio, so I got to see all 4 years or 3 years of his high school career. When I tell you, he's fast. Now, obviously, for a kid to come out of North Hall to stick on Georgia's roster, something has to be exceptional. And he has exceptional speed. And he is not afraid of anything. I'm telling you.
He sacrificed his body, by the way, too. There's there's countless reps that you've seen on tape.
I will tell you.
Sacrificing his body. Even at G-Day.
If there's an 18-wheeler coming down the middle of the field, he'll stick his nose in front of it if he thinks he has a chance of stopping it. So
think about this. You remember the national title, Keely Ringo pick 6?
Yeah.
Who got laid out to let him run into the end zone?
I think it was him. I think
it was Dan Jackson.
Yeah.
Yeah. But at the same time, even at G-Day, do you remember seeing Dan Jackson run into the box and just lay people down? Like, it's not a surprise.
But when you're a guy like that, you have to play that way.
You're right.
He doesn't have the ability to take a play off. And you got to love and respect that about a guy. I mean, he's extremely talented. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not doing that. But, like, he understands that if he's not 100% on every single play, he's not playing.
Yeah.
And I love to have guys like that on your team. I think it makes you better.
I mean, without a question, it does. I mean, but at the same time, I also look at a situation where, and I'm not even sleeping on Jake Pope. I think Jake Pope's going to be a benefit here. I think he'll probably play with the 2s, and that's completely fine. But he had a club on his hand at G-Day, and if he didn't have that on there, I think you see him get an interception at G-Day.
Mm-hmm.
But being in the right spot, I'm not necessarily worried about it, but I am going to see, and I think a lot of us are probably going to be looking at the fact, how long does it take for KJ to kind of just assume that role beside Malachi? Because, I mean, when Kirby starts name dropping you as a freshman, there's a reason. There is a reason. There is a reason.
You're not wrong. Not even a little bit. And he's the one thing that I think, and I haven't seen him. I haven't seen any pictures of him. I haven't seen him at all since the spring. And I'm just going to say, if he's added 10 pounds, which is not, I mean, I know that sounds like a lot, but that's not hard to do at a top level program like Georgia with the nutrition and the weightlifting that they do.
Mm-hmm.
If KJ was able to add 10 pounds from where he was in the spring to now, I think it's going to be sooner rather than later.
Oh, no, I think you're 100% right. I mean, I know you got to see him in high school, right? Yeah. I mean, I know you were dealing with Mill
a little thin. I mean, a little thin, but I mean, he fast, athletic, tough, physical, all of those. He checks every single box.
He
a little thin.
Fits the Georgia. I felt like he fit the Georgia mold then, because you knew that you could see that his body, his frame would be able to sustain the weight.
Like it was not even a problem. Not even a problem. He has everything there. It was just a matter of time. It's not one of those if it's when with a guy like that. And he, like I said, he checks all the boxes. So It's just one of those things where it's not disrespectful to anybody to say that the SEC is almost like playing in the NFL. So, like, you can't – it's very difficult to be the best player in high school, show up, and then be the best player in the SEC. Like, it's very, very difficult. Like, Malachi Starks was able to burst on the scene, and one of the reasons is because he was able to add really good weight. He got really thick, really strong, and he was always thick, and he played in the box in high school. But, I'm telling you, if KJ was able to put on 10 pounds from spring to now, then it's going to be really soon where he takes over.
I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I'd heard that he was on the same, like at the same point, if not farther along than Malachi at this point.
That's great.
Then if that is the case, now I'm not going to compare the two just because they do different things very well, right? But I do think that's definitely a good sign for Georgia fans moving forward, because I think a lot of us are kind of just thinking about that and just like having just, pure pandemonium set in a good way, right? It is in a completely good way. Special teams, Peyton Woodring, I don't feel any concern there. Brett Thorson,
best punter in the country.
Yeah, no doubt. Should be fun there. Special teams is good. And with that being said, I think, are there any final thoughts on?
I'll tell you something that I'm actually looking forward to, and I know this is kind of silly, is I want to see who's returning kicks. And like Kirby went through at the press conference, he listed off like 10 different guys that can do it.
Yeah, I think you'll do. In my opinion, I think Anthony Evans has got to be that guy. He mentioned Cole Spear. He mentioned Cole Spear a lot.
And he mentioned
so we really don't know. Don't really know.
Hey, there was a guy that was pretty special at Georgia, and he started his career returning kicks. A guy named Todd Gurley. And if you remember correctly, I think it was Buffalo, the very first game, the very first play.
Kickoff return.
Kickoff return, very first one of the year. Bam, sink it to the house.
And at that moment, a star was born. Special teams aside, I think I trust Kirby in that right there. I don't necessarily think you're having a Mekhi Mew situation. I think there's too many playmakers, too explosive of playmakers. Anthony Evans is one that just automatically jumps off the radar. But at the same time, maybe that's a kick return. I'd love to see Anthony Evans as a punt returner. Give me Cole Spear as a kick returner, I think, with Anthony Evans, and just do a two-back, kick return.
I think like a running back because I feel like they're better in
Dwight. Or you talking about like Dwight Phillips or Nate Frazier?
I'm just saying I would prefer a running back returning kickoffs to a wide receiver.
Just because of their ability to find the hole creases and stuff.
It's just their innate abilities, and they're more physical. They're used to taking hits.
Well, fair. I just also think, kind of think about like Isaiah McKenzie, right? You remember that. But like Anthony Evans has that juice, man, and it can't be.
Well, yeah, if you block it right.
No, I think he's able to find the crease. So, I mean, we saw at G-Day, we saw in the SEC title game, we saw his playmaking ability in the return game from punts.
I think it's just my personal preference.
Also, keep in mind, if I'm not mistaken, are we starting to see – I know NFL's doing it. You're an NFL guy. The NFL kickoff stuff is changing. That's not necessarily applying just to college yet, is it?
Yeah, they're not doing that in college yet.
Okay, good.
But I'm telling you, if after the reports come in about injuries and then what they're trying to do is make the kick return exciting again. And if they're able to do that and then also limit injuries, you can see it come to the college game very soon.
I mean, it kind of trickles down, unfortunately. I mean, whether it's good or bad, it trickles down. There's no getting away from it, it feels like. I mean, it's what it is.
Well, it would be a new trend because it seems like right now everything is moving up, right? All the spread, the like it started in high school, went to college, now it's in the NFL. It used to be the other way around.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think it's certain things kind of do that right there. But any other things that we need to talk about? Did you see any things that of concern to you? Did you see any concerning things as we recap the fall camp and everything else?
I mean, if you want to nitpick or if you want to just pull something out of the air, I would say the one concern that I would have is we didn't really hear or see a lot out of the number 2 and number 3 quarterbacks right now. All focus has been on Carson. And obviously it should be, but God forbid something were to happen. What does that look like? Or is it Gunner's job, or is it Dylan Rashada has a chance to step in?
I want to say that Gunner soundly put himself as a backup.
Okay,
if I'm not mistaken. I think in the meantime you're getting Rashada acclimated to the system. I think you're getting you're getting Puglisi as well. Now the question is if Carson Beck were to go down, depending on when in the season, right? Do you look to a Jaden Rashada that has had college experience, or do you trust, Gunner Stockton that may not have had as much, but he's in the system, he's familiar with the system? How do you go about that? That I think that's the main question.
and I think George is in a unique position to where they're is so talented that if Dylan or Gunner had to start a game or two, unless it was Alabama or Texas, I think you're fine.
It's very possible. I think you look at how how we managed the backup quarterback position with Carson when he was backup. I think that's what you have to do this year, because
Just talking about just finding opportunities to get reps.
get them situated, let them operate the offense, not just sit here and hand the ball off. No, you can't do that. You need to let him you need to let whoever it is operate the offense, whether it be second quarterback, third quarterback, does not matter. Let them operate, get game reps. I think you need to let them see how they control the offense, control the game, things like that. I think that's going to matter, and it's almost like a job interview for next season.
I agree, and it's one of those things where I hope that we don't have to see it. So
fair. At the same time, though, if we're beating the shit out of
I'm talking about I don't want to see. My whole point of it was
I know what you mean. Now
I don't know what they would do if push came to shove, but at the same time, I don't want to know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no doubt. All right, let's move on. Let's do this before we move on to Jeff Hytoff's over-unders. Guys, make sure to hit that like, follow, subscribe, and if you're listening on podcast, rate us, review us, let us know what you think. All right, all that type of support goes a long, long way, and I hope y'all understand that. Obviously, we said at the top of the show, this show is brought to you by Alumni Hall. Guys, get yourself geared up for game day. It's literally football time in Athens, right? Get your jerseys, get your hats. Oh, you want to? Okay, get you a little nice fire pit, right? Polos, shirts, all licensed, by the way, right? All licensed apparel, merchandise. Back to school kids just started up, right? Get yourself geared up at Alumni Hall. Check them out in Athens, Georgia, or you can go to our website, dgdpodcast.com, and go to our sponsors, shop Alumni Hall, and get yourself geared up. If you're in stores, go to Athens, get yourself 10% off your order by going in stores, mentioning us. Tell them we sent you. You'll get 10% off your order. Pretty easy call to make, don't you think?
Pretty easy. You're gonna be there anyway. You're gonna spend money anyway. Save
it. With that being said, it is time for Jeff Hytoff's over-unders. And I'm looking forward to this, right? I'm looking forward to this because we did this last season and we didn't do it necessarily. Oh, it's so beautiful. Such a beautiful picture. So we did this last season. Every game, one of our brigadiers, if you will, Jeff Hytoff, sent us over and under predictions. And we would make our over and under predictions each show to then come back after the game and see how well we did. All right. So he was generous enough to send us some over unders for the entire regular season.
All right.
Ahead of week 1.
All right.
So with that being said, there are 5 over unders, and I'm going to list them out for you. All right. Carson Beck, and I'm going to read these off, Dan. I'm going to read these off, and then we'll go through each one and make our over-under pick. All right? Okay. Carson Beck, 25 passing touchdowns. Nate Frazier, averaging 5.75 yards per carry. Michael and Jalen Walker, 13.5 combined sacks. Georgia's defense, 12.5 interceptions. And Dominic Lovett, 1,033 receiving yards. Can we get a 1,000-yard receiver out of Dominic Lovett? So those are the 5. Dan, do you want me to keep these up as we go?
Yeah.
Or
Just keep them up.
we'll keep it up. All right, I'm gonna let you go first. Over under 25 passing touchdowns. For
Way
Carson
over.
Beck. Way over. Keep in mind, last year I think he had 24. I might be wrong. But
okay.
the regular season. In the regular season.
Oh, well.
In the regular season, do you see over under 25?
I still see over. Maybe not way over, but dude's going over. I mean, there's guys that have put up 50 touchdowns a year. I mean,
that is crazy.
He was the first-year starter. Yeah, I'm not saying it's a bad number. I think it's a very intriguing number.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that we're going to see them throw the ball more than more than we have recently, and I think he's going to comfortably be over.
And Jeff also is in the chat right now saying that he is confirming it is a 12-game regular season. So this does not include postseason at all.
You putting them back up?
Yep, I will. Sorry, I just had to bring that up. For me, I will also go over. I'm hesitant though, and the only reason why I'm slightly hesitant it's because if we get into the red zone, Kirby has a tendency to utilize the running backs, and with the running back core that we have, running back room, I could easily see us utilizing the running backs. So I have concern there, but I will say over on this one specifically. And also, if you're in the chat watching this live, let us know what your thoughts are. Over or under with us. Feel free. Feel free to let us know what your thoughts are too. We move on to Nate Frazier, averaging 5.75 yards per carry. Now, there's no minimum, so
yeah, well,
that kind of could play into it, if you will, depending on, because we don't know volume yet. We expect him to get run, but do we think he gets to 5.75? Do you think it's over or under?
I think it's under. I think a lot of his carries are going to be at the end of the game where they're grinding out a win, and with a lot of backup linemen and stuff. So I'd gladly be wrong, but I think that one's going to be under.
I think I'm with you. See, because there's no minimum, right? There's no minimum. The law of averages tells me over. However, I do see your logic, right? Part of me thinks that he could go over on this, and I'll tell you why. If you're depending on when he gets in, you could find a situation where he is, the back right at the time, but you could also see a situation where he has the ability to just gash a long run and bring that average well above, right? Because it is the 12-game season, right? Say he breaks off a 40-yard touchdown run, right? And he gets a nice average. The law of averages tells me that I think it might be over.
Well, then go over.
That's what I'm doing.
All right. You just
all right.
Are you writing these down?
No, I know what's going on.
Because I ain't going to remember this shit.
No, Jeff also does the same thing. Right. However, Michael and Jalen Walker, 13.5 combined sacks. Over, under.
I think that's a really good number. Georgia, it rotates so many guys in. We don't really have anybody with gaudy numbers. But I think this could be a special year for Michael if they let him get after the passer. He might, but the whole playing linebacker thing scares the hell out of me because if he's backed up and in coverage, then no way. But if he's got his hand on the ground, there's a chance that Michael gets close to that number by himself. So I'm just going to take over.
You were taking the over 13.5. Oh man, you hit the nail on the head. This is tearing me apart because both of those guys are extremely disruptive. Jalen Walker was the best pass rusher that we had last year when he was on the field. I expect him to get an expanded role. However, I just don't know with how much we rotate if both of them hit the 13.5. Because you're basically telling me that both of them need to hit 7 sacks to make this happen. But if you're telling me that Damon Wilson is on a third down, and you're telling me that, you could easily put anybody else in at this point, that's hard for me to believe. So I'm going to go under, but I do think they are extremely close to hit. I think you could even see 13 combined, not half. That's the half point that gets people. I'm going to go under, but I think they're right there at that 13 number. That's just my prediction there.
All right.
Georgia's defense, 12 and a half interceptions in 12 games. Can they average a pick per game? Yes or no?
Listen, I'm going to say yes. And let me tell you why.
Do tell.
I do believe that Georgia is going to have a lead in a lot of these games, and the teams will be forced to throw and become very one-dimensional. And when that happens, turnovers become more common. Like if Georgia was in a tight back-and-forth game, I don't know that they get to that number, but with the amount of times that some teams are going to have to throw, I think you very well could have a game where you have 3 or 4. So
I'm going to go confident. Over. You feel confident in the secondary too. And honestly, listen, it doesn't always have to be secondary. You could see linebackers potentially too.
I'm telling you, it doesn't matter where it comes from as long as it's INT.
So Dogs Rolling Loud says under on this. I'm going to go. Oh, buddy, this is going to be tough. The fact that we're playing these marquee matchups.
I don't know how did Jeff come up with that number? What was the number last year, Jeff?
I don't know. Ahead. I don't remember. If he's a stat guy, he can pull it up while we're talking. I'm going to go over, and I think it's because the level of play within the regular season that we've got. You've got Ole Miss that wants to run that wants to pass the ball a lot. They've got Juice Wells. Can you prepare for that? You've got Texas. You've got Alabama. Tennessee likes to pass the ball a lot. There's a lot of opportunity, if you will, to get to that 13 mark in regards to interceptions. Under? I'm going over.
Oh, I thought you said under.
No, I'm going over, but I think it's right there. Because 12 and it doesn't sound like much when you have that many people. However, that many is a lot, especially interception. It's not interceptions and fumbles. It's strictly interceptions, and that's a lot.
I'm feeling pretty comfortable about it.
Oh, you went
over.
Okay, so we both hit over on this one.
Yep.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. And the last one, Dominic Lovett, 1,033 receiving yards. Do we see him break the 1,000-yard mark? First time since Terrence Edwards. Do we see this happen this season for Dom Lovett? Are you over or are you under?
I want him to be over so bad, but I'm going to go under. I think that there's too many people, and I think Carson has shown a propensity to spread the ball around. It never to me seemed like Carson would zero in on one guy and just be looking for him the whole game. Maybe that's because he didn't have that guy. I don't know. I just think he's going to be very efficient. So we had 14 and 14 last year. Okay.
So we did average a pick per game. Well, that's also regular season or not regular season. That's including postseason.
I wouldn't be surprised if Dom finishes the season with like 926 somewhere in there. Maybe one good game away from hitting that number. Well, regular season.
Yeah, no. The thing about it is this: when you take a look last year, Georgia had the potential to hit 1,000-yard receiver.
Brock,
and you know who I'm talking about.
Brock.
Yes.
Yeah.
Injuries happen.
Wait, wasn't Ladd close too?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had two guys close.
Brock would have crushed the 1,000-yard mark had he not gotten hurt.
You know what we haven't seen out of Georgia, though, and this is what hurts you, right, is if you look at these other teams, you'll have the one receiver who will pop for like 242 in a game. Like you don't ever see that out of a Georgia player. I mean, you'll see like 115, 120, but you don't ever see the 250-yard receiving game. out of a Georgia.
No, this is definitely – who was it? No, that was Josh Gordon in the NFL. Josh Gordon had those back-to-back 200-yard games. You remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see that kind of a situation. I think you could see them have one real good game. If he gets to 1,000 yards, though, that is Georgia. There's no reason not to assume that Georgia is going to the playoffs, deep in the playoffs, if he gets to 1,000 yards in the regular season. It's insane offensive production to see that. I'm going under as well. I think he will hit under. I think we just rotate, and there's too many bodies at the receiver position. And listen, Jeff also brings up this connection with Carson Beck. That is his guy. We've seen that as long as Carson is under center or behind center. Dom and Dylan Bell. But I also just said the name that I think will hold Dom Lovett from getting 1,033, and that is Dylan Bell. I'm going to tell you right now, I think you could easily get maybe 800-yard receivers, and I wouldn't be mad at all about that. But 1,000-yard receiver, with how much depth we have, how many guys we rotate by default, extremely hard to believe. Yeah. Anyways, let's move on. All right, let's talk some college football week 0. Dan, we've waited. What are you most excited about now that week 0 is here?
Football's here. I mean, period. The end. It's time to watch football. I'm really excited about that. But out of that week 0 schedule, and I know you said that the Stanford game was a game that you like, but I'm really excited to watch the Georgia Tech Florida State game because I think Georgia Tech's going to win that.
Now let's do this. Let's transition over to our week 0 picks in the DGD Pickem. Let's do this. We're going to do this, kind of make it here. We'll pull this up right here, breakdown. There are 9 matchups, and then new twist, Jaden's game of the week. This is handpicked by my 6-year-old himself. And there are lock and upset picks. However, week 0 does not apply. Lock and upset picks are not happening in week 0. Here are the rules. Lock and upset picks must be outside of your weekly picks in a normal format, I should say. There's no double dipping, right? We had this situation last year. Double dipping is when you're lock and you're upset. They cannot be the same game. Also, you cannot pick one outcome in a regular pick'em game and then use that in a lock or upset. So if you have Georgia Tech winning, but you cannot have Florida State as your upset alert. You just can't do that. So we will utilize a point spread for the locks and the upset this season. I will use probably DraftKings, but we do provide screenshot of the spreads and things like that. So offline, if you will. Now, the fun part is this. Here's the scoring, normal scoring. For the normal scoring, 1 point for a correct pick. You get nothing if you're wrong. For Jaden's game of the week, Jaden will pick the team for the brigade. So this applies to the brigade. It is a normal scoring, right? It is like your normal scoring, except for the brigade. If the brigade pick that Jaden hits, if he gets that correct, the brigade gets 3 points for that pick. If he is incorrect, you get nothing. Right? No harm, no foul for letting a 6-year-old pick your game. Lock of the week. If your lock loses, you lose 2 points. You wash for your lock winning, but you incorrectly pick whether they cover or not. So if Florida State if you expect them, if that's your lock, you go, they're covering, and they do not cover their spread, wash. Likewise, in the contrary, if they do cover and you do say that they cover, then you get 2 points for your lock winning while also calling whether they cover correctly as well. Upset is the same situation. +2 if your upset wins outright. Nothing if your upset covers but does not win. And then -2 if your upset pick gets beat by more than the spread that they are losing to. So with that being said, let's do this. First things first, Dan, are you ready?
I'm ready.
North Carolina A&T taking on Wake Forest.
And this
All
is
of us-
Pickem. This is Pickem, or
this is
against the spread.
This is Pickem. Everybody, guys, is in favor of Wake Forest in this one. I don't necessarily see
Who's the
anything
Brigade?
The Brigade is our chat. There is a Twitter poll that we do every week. For those listening, for those watching, make sure you're following us on Twitter because we drop this poll every single week.
Okay.
So in regards to North Carolina A&T and Wake Forest, Dan, everyone is unanimous. It is Wake Forest.
All right.
We move to the next one. Coastal Carolina, the Chanticleers, Jacksonville State Gamecocks. This one's interesting, Dan. Are you ready for this one?
Sure.
Myself, Keon, and Kobe going Jacksonville State. Juan, Dan, and the Brigade going Coastal Carolina. This was the first example of a Twitter poll tiebreaker. Okay. With that being said, in the case of a Twitter poll tiebreaker, Jaden will pick the game for you. Now, the normal scoring applies. If he gets it wrong, you get nothing. If he gets it right, you get 1 point.
What are you talking about?
For the Brigade.
No, what does that mean? How is there a tie?
So, for instance, every week we post a poll and people vote.
Are you saying so if if that game that they're voting for is 50-50?
Yes.
Okay.
If the Twitter poll shows 50-50, Jaden is picking that game for the Brigade.
Okay, understood.
And the normal scoring applies. So if he gets it right, they get 1 point. If he gets it wrong, nothing.
Okay.
So that is the first instance where Jaden picked the Coastal Carolina. Florida Atlantic, Michigan State. I don't think this was any. Wait a minute. Juan Daniels going Florida Atlantic. Everyone else picking Michigan State. Are you surprised by that?
There's a contrarian in every group.
You're not wrong. It is Juan Daniels, so we'll leave it there. This is fun. North Dakota State, Colorado.
I originally picked North Dakota State, and I think I submitted Colorado.
Here's what we've got.
Yeah.
Dan, you picked Colorado. Myself and Keon picked Colorado as well. Kobe, Juan, and the Brigade on behalf of Jaden picked North Dakota State. Upset alert?
I'm telling you, if that game was at North Dakota State, I'd pick them to win it.
I think you're right, too. I think you're right with that. I'm not even mad. We'll do this quick. Elon and Duke. I love Caleb Curtin there at Elon, former Grimsley Worley. Sorry, I just think Duke overpowers. That's going to keep that short and sweet. Moving on, I think this game is very interesting. North Carolina, Minnesota. Everyone has UNC winning this game. Now, Dan.
Listen, I didn't know that was Minnesota. I thought that was Buc-ee's.
Oh, man. So if you're watching this, I'm just going to let you know. I'm going to pull this back up. If you see a lot of animal logos, I want you to understand it's not my call. Okay? I want to keep that on the record. That is not my call. Partially a 6-year-old has something to do with that. But UNC sweeping on behalf of the picks here. Actually, the underdog. Can you believe that? On the road, underdog.
Well, they got 3 Mill Creek kids on their roster, so I'm picking.
There you go.
North Carolina.
Yeah. Temple Owls, Oklahoma, 16th ranked Oklahoma. Easily Oklahoma. Just going to do that short, sweet, to the point. Oklahoma. Same can be said. Western Carolina, NC State, number 24th ranked NC State, gets the sweep this week, clean sweep. Now, Florida State, 10th ranked Florida State, Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets in Dublin, Ireland. Dan, we talked about this. Biggest game of the week, but it's not our game of the week. It's not Jaden's game of the week. I want to do it very quick. What are your thoughts on this game being in Ireland? ACC Conference Showdown. Quick talking point. I cannot wait to watch that game.
So for me, I think Florida State tried to rebuild their team through the portal. You don't have a lot of continuity yet. You're in a different country. You got a lot going against you. You got punked all off season about the way your season ended. I think you have Georgia Tech, who is getting better every single time they go out. I think Buster Faulkner is doing an amazing job over there at Georgia Tech. I think Haynes King is a legitimate quarterback. I think they have added and significantly upgraded their roster. But on top of that, they have continuity. They have played together. I think they have a really good chance of pulling the upset.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, you and Kobe both picked Georgia Tech in this game. My thing is this game was really hard for me to pick. I went with Florida State just because of the sheer top-tier talent that they have, if you will. But if Georgia Tech pulls off the upset in this game, I won't be surprised. I'll tell you that. I will not be surprised. Just won't. I think that is a very good football team, and I hate to say it because we do play them at the end, but this is what happens when Georgia Tech gets a coach that cares about football and not freaking marketing.
Right.
And as expected here, Jaden's game of the week, guys. If you can't tell from the Pokemon theme, now you know. TCU Horned Frogs, Stanford Cardinal, guys. Stanford Cardinal, and here we go. Jaden picks TCU. I pick Stanford. Juan and Kobe going Stanford with Ashton Daniels. And Keon and Dan, you're picking TCU in this. What made you pick TCU?
I don't know. I just
hard to say at this point in time.
Yeah, like I listen. I want Ashton to have unparalleled success. I want him to be on top of the world. I do. I don't know that their roster and TCU has had a good run lately. And when that happens, you recruit better than you have. But I just think the talent is a little more stacked up on. And then if you think about one of the best receiving options that they had is Yusuf, and he's at Georgia now. So again, I will gladly be wrong. I will take my 0 points if I'm wrong. I want Ashton to have amazing success out there. I think it's gonna be tough.
I'm looking forward to watching that game. I know I'm gonna try. Well, if it's not too late, I'm gonna get Jaden to watch that game too. I'm looking forward. I think Ashton's gonna have a really good season as their starting quarterback. I'd love to see them take on TCU and beat TCU. So I picked them to win in week 0. Now, with that being said, like I said this earlier, there is no lock. There is no upset alert. We will resume that. We will start that in week 1. Dan, any final thoughts on tonight's show? College football's here. Any final thoughts?
We're so close right now that you can almost taste it, and now like this next week is going to drag along because I can't wait for that game. But
yeah,
hey, listen, I do have one final thought. Do me a favor, enjoy the season, okay? I know that it's very difficult, the highs and the lows, and we kind of want to just get to the end. But slow down, enjoy the season because it's so short and it's over before you know it. And, my whole thing is now that Georgia is as good as they are, it seems like people just don't enjoy the season. They're upset all the time about something. Just enjoy the season. Enjoy it.
Slow down, baby. Yeah. I don't have to say nothing. Just let Jackie Chan do the talk for me. Guys, that's all we've got for tonight. Make sure to go DGD.com, shop Alumni Hall. Okay? Shop Alumni Hall. Get yourself geared up for game day. Listen, free advertisement. Get yourself some Jittery Joes by chance, right? Attack the day. I did it on vacation. Going to do it every single Saturday. Get you pumped. All right? Get you pumped for 9 o'clock. College game day. Week 0 is here, folks. Get ready for Saturday. Sit down and enjoy the college football season. Dan, you said it best. Slow down. Just enjoy it. Just enjoy it. With that being said, have a great night. Good morning, whenever you listen to this. Right? Have a great rest of your day.